So Charles, you were in the budget lockup. How did that go?
Well, what's always interested in those things is seeing the difference between how the government wants to spin how the future it's building for us versus what the numbers actually say. But other than that, it's really actually hours and hours of looking through pages and pages and pages of documents. So if you find that fun, you'd love the budget lockup.
The front page of the Globe and Mail this morning had an article where Gordon Campbell indicated that the cause of the bad weather at the Olympics was climate change. And later he said that he was going to accelerate his climate campaign. Does this budget reflect that?
Well, I saw that article. I thought that was really interesting. Sadly, you don't really see that reflected in the budget at all. There's still massive subsidies to the oil and gas industry. There are a few token gestures to climate initiatives, but basically the oil and gas industry is outgunning us 10 to 1 when you look at the figures. So really, again, huge support for really dirty fuels and not very much for clean energy.
Was there any good news in the budget?
So I think the best news is probably that Live Smart program is back up again. So they've got $35 million in there over the next 3 years to support that program. There's also an allocation of $100 million, which they say is going to go to clean energy development. Unfortunately, the devil there is going to be in the detail, whether they're actually supporting sustainable projects or not. And as we see, like, the federal government has used some of its green initiatives to power, to build a transmission line that's going to power dirty coal mines. So really, the devil's going to be in the detail with that one.
What did the budget have to say about Ministry of Environment staffing levels?
Again, it's difficult to find those numbers in the budget. Previous budgets have explicitly stated the staffing levels. This budget doesn't have those numbers in them. What we're told by the ministry staff is that they're anticipating a 4% attrition rate each year over the coming years. And so that means the ministry staff will gradually be getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And we're particularly concerned about because enforcement of environmental regulations has been decreasing over the tenure of the BC Liberals.
Speak of enforcement, the Auditor General recently released a report where he said the Oil and Gas Commission had to step up its enforcement. Was that reflected in the budget?
You can't point directly to those numbers. There is a small increase for the Oil and Gas Commission, but where that money is going, we can't say.
Overall, you said there was a 10 to 1 imbalance between subsidies to the oil and gas industry and initiatives to address global warming. What about coal?
They're anticipating that revenue from coal will be increasing. So again, that's another contradiction between what Campbell says his ambitions about addressing global warming are versus the on-the-ground reality.
What grade would you give this budget overall?
Yeah, I guess I would have to say, if I was being generous, I'd now give it a D. I think Campbell's best efforts were a couple of years ago when they introduced the carbon tax and he seemed like he was getting serious about climate change. Good news, I suppose, also is that the carbon tax is still there, so there's still some mechanism to address that. But overall, the budget doesn't attempt to make the transitions on the scale that we really need them to be made.
And in the budget around the energy corridor?
Again, there's no specific allocation for that. They mention the energy corridor in the service plan for the Ministry of Energy, Mines and Petroleum Resources. But really, they're just saying that they want to get First Nations on side in building pipelines from Alberta to BC. So I guess they still want that to go ahead.
Can you summarize the subsidies to the oil and gas industry and the mining industry again?
I mean, obviously the numbers speak for themselves. $10 to the oil and gas industry for every $1 for the environment. The oil and gas industry is the industry that's causing one of the primary causes of global warming, and we can't really address global warming unless we're willing to tackle that industry. Really, the budget is about setting the coursework for what kind of future BC is going to have, and really we see the future in oil and gas in this budget, and no real measures to address climate change.
Any other thoughts?
One thing a lot of the reporters were asking was whether there was any money allocated for the Juan de Fuca lands. Again, there's no specific allocation for that. We're hoping for the government would take the opportunity to make a good news announcement there. So obviously we're still going to have to keep up the public pressure to see any movement on that file.
Thanks, Charles.
Okay, well, thanks a lot.
Thank you.